Hello, Scorpio. Welcome to your March 2023 astrology forecast. Now, I'm sorry these are a little bit late, but I wanted to spend extra time on these readings because there's just so much to talk about because March is such a big month. Now, for you especially, March is especially potent. There are a few zodiac signs that are getting like a little bit extra emphasis. And the reason why Scorpio is because your two planets, Mars, which is your traditional ruling planet, and Pluto, which is your modern planet, are both moving signs. Mars is moving into his fall, right? He's exalted over here in Capricorn, which means he falls over here in Cancer. And this transition is pretty potent because Mars has been in Gemini since August. He did a retrograde in Gemini. And for you in the 8th house, there was a lot of evolution that occurred. Now, some of you may have experienced financial evolution. You may have, really completely revamped your financial world or your relationship with finances, or maybe your spouse or your partner was going through something. Maybe there were loans incurred or debts, or they were paid off or something along those lines. But now the focus is really shifting into a more spirituality component. We know that the 8th house also has a lot to do with death and rebirth. And when we hit the 9th house, this is kind of like, woohoo, I'm free. Like the 8th house compresses us and pulls us in and really forces a lot of, how do I want to say this? It really just like forces a lot from us. Forces us to be the best that we can be, and it forces us to heal, and it forces us to evolve. But in order for that evolution to occur, a lot of our fragments or our fragmented selves or fragmented concepts of self have to sort of be integrated into like this wholeness, right? So we kind of take all these splinters, we bring them all together to create a whole aspect of us. And I think your idea of who you are is pretty different than who you thought you were at the end of August last year when Mars came in. So now when Mars comes into the 9th, we are now free to really express and explore that new identity and that new sense of self and to really push forward, especially if you had a challenging Mars transit over the past 7 months. If it was challenging, Mars coming into the 9th may feel like a little bit of relief. There's going to be a lot of spiritual lessons that come through as well for you during this time. Now, Mars doesn't enter until March 25th. So technically, this is probably going to have a lot more to do with the April energies. We'll talk more about it in April. But I did want to point it out just simply because it is your ruling planet and it is happening, and Mars is leaving your sort of comfy space here, which is the 8th house. All right. Now, your other planet in modern Western astrology is Pluto. Now, Pluto is moving into Aquarius, which is a huge deal, right? We haven't seen Pluto in Aquarius for 250 years. And it just so happens that it's coming across your 4th house cusp. 4th house, I always say, is like one of our most important houses. The 4th house represents like our root system, right? If you envision a tree and all these other houses are like the branches of the tree, the 4th house is where the trunk goes into the earth and the roots spread out. So it creates not only stability, but there's a lot of nutrition that comes up through here as well. And a lot of our growth comes through the 4th and how the 4th expresses. The people who have really challenged 4th houses can often really struggle with career and relationships, okay? Now, Pluto is a force to be reckoned with for sure. And when Pluto comes across this line, your 4th house is going to get just crushed, okay? back and forth, 2 different times over the next 2 years. This is a period of massive reinvention for Scorpio. Now, reinvention is something that Scorpio does well generally, but also as a fixed sign, Scorpio, your job truly is to preserve. So that's one of the reasons why Scorpio is said to be such a challenging sign, is because Scorpio actually wants to preserve the beauty and the balance that was established with Libra, which is the season right before. But it has to turn it over, right, to find freedom. The duality of the 2 scales of Libra have to merge. But that merging can get really messy. And that's why a lot of shadow work comes through with Scorpio, right? There's the merging of the 2 sides of the scale. There's no longer 2. There is now 1 merging of energy, merging of resources, whatever the case may be, merging of bodies, right? Sex with Scorpio, you merge bodies here, they become 1, and things get complicated. And the beauty and the balance of Libra is then demolished. And we have to work through that. And then in Sag, we find the freedom from it. But I do think that you are going to feel a compression here with this Pluto coming over this 4th house cusp. And it will affect in many areas of your life. Now, this can be fantastic for the people who are determined to allow change in their lives. If you are consciously saying, I'm ready to change, I'm ready to evolve, I'm ready to grow, I'm ready to earn the money, I'm ready to fall in love, I'm ready to share, I'm ready to go deep, I'm ready to not run away. If you can truly tell yourself that you are ready and rise to the occasion and live up to the challenge, this Pluto can be like the best thing that ever happened to you. And I wouldn't be surprised if many Scorpios, if their careers just freaking took off and their financial life just took off and they fell madly in love and got married and all the wonderful things that you want out of life could happen. I wouldn't be surprised. It's a matter of, are you going to let it happen or not? And consciously, you might be like, of course I'm going to let it happen. I'm not a dummy. Like, obviously, I'm going to let it happen. But it's one thing to say it, and it's one thing to consciously be thinking that. But Pluto does not operate on the conscious realm. So you can tell yourself that all day long. You can do affirmations in the mirror all day long. You can do law of attraction, self-concept work all day long. And it doesn't hit the place where Pluto is. Pluto is like the soul-driven or gut-wrenching desire to make something happen. This comes from an uncontrollable place within you. And for the people who are truly ready, it will show up. And the people who are not truly ready, the people who are operating in fear, the people who are loyal to the wrong things, this is going to be very challenging. Some people are going to have a very hard 2 years ahead of them because of this, okay? It doesn't have to be you, though. There is going to be a lot of release for Scorpio, a lot of opportunities to release over the next 2 years. Okay, but we're just getting the very first taste of it now. As Pluto comes in through the 4th, there's going to be a lot of like, where do you want to establish yourself? And many Scorpios are going to try to find the right place to be, whether it's the home, where are you living? Where are you settled? Do you want to move? Do you want to move to a different country, right? Do you want to move to a different city? Do you want to move into the countryside? Whatever the case is. I remember when my Pluto was coming through my 4th house. I mean, I'm a Libra rising, so it was coming through my 4th house. I moved like every single year since like 2010. Every single year I was in a different house, different location, different apartment, different country sometimes, whatever the case was, I was in a different place. So some Scorpios are going to really struggle with finding a place to live, a place that they really love to be, a place where they can flourish and grow, and yet the desire to find it, it's like this unrelenting desire that you're not going to be able to get away from. Okay. We'll talk more about that in the months to come, as that's going to stay prominent. But for now, we're really focusing just on Pluto going back and forth over that 4th house cusp. Okay. It's going to be the same for Taurus with their 10th house act. Actually, all the fixed signs are going to go through that. Okay. We also have Saturn coming into Pisces now. Now, generally, Pisces in the 5th, I love that, because there's a lot of Jupiterian, where obviously Jupiter is the ruler of Pisces traditionally, and pleasure and enjoyment. I think Scorpio does have this ability to just really enjoy life. They don't tend to overthink things a lot. I mean, I know you have deep feelings or whatever, but I don't often see my Scorpio, and I know this is really contradictory to like the stereotypes out there, but I don't normally see my Scorpios like sitting and brooding over stuff. It's like, I'll work really hard, I'll find a solution, and when it's time to check out and go to like the family barbecue or whatever, I'll just be in the moment. I'll be present, I'll be there, I'll really enjoy that. Now, sometimes when Saturn comes in through the 5th, there's like this, I can't have fun unless I earn it quality. I can't just go out and just do it because it's enjoyable anymore. I have to earn it, almost as though pleasure and enjoyment is like a reward for some accomplishment, some arbitrary accomplishment. Dating can also be a little bit of a stressor here as well. And a lot of Scorpios might kind of take themselves off the market a little bit, just simply not interested in dating, or only dating people who are mature or established. This may have a lot to do with your own standards that you're holding yourself to. Dating can be harder because you're operating way, way, way up here. And it's like, there's no way you're going to come down this ladder just for the sake of like not feeling lonely tonight. I think Scorpio is one of those signs. Scorpio and Libra, notoriously good at being single, notoriously good at being on their own, just simply because they're not going to scrimp, right? They're not going to scrimp. They're not going to compromise. And Saturn in the 5th can often make that more, more demanding. So you might start feeling that as well. Your creative energy may be, I'm not going to say it's going to be blocked, although it may not have the normal flow that it normally has. Definitely can create some frustration in the inspiration department. Sometimes Saturn can be just a little too intellectual. And think about things and strategize things a little too much. And sometimes it feels like it's trying too hard. And when you try too hard, it doesn't usually succeed or work. And it can end up kind of this little frustrated feedback loop. So the goal here is to just be aware of that. And if you do feel like you're trying too hard, or you're pushing and trying to force something to work, to find a way to take a step back and sort of surrender yourself just a little bit, and just sort of allow yourself to flow in your normal Pisces in the 5th house type of way. Okay. Now we do have this interesting conjunction happening, Mercury, Sun with Neptune. And this is actually a really beautiful conjunction. Normally I don't like the Sun coming in contact with Neptune, but with all the other stuff going on, I actually feel that this will be quite lovely in balancing everything out. This is happening in the middle of March, before the activation of Aries season. So this particular set of, squished planets here, I do feel that it feels inspired to me. It feels inspired. Like maybe you have been working on something and you've been trying to, make something work, or put something together, or design something, or whatever the case is. And it's going really slow, or it's not fully formulating. I almost feel like this is going to be kind of, I don't want to say a bolt of lightning, but it feels almost as though the original idea is giving birth to a second idea, and that second idea feels a lot more attainable and doable. And I think your attention on that second idea is probably going to be a really good choice. Just because you originally put some time and effort and resources into one thing, if it's feeling really cramped, you're going to need to get away from that, at least for now. Maybe you come back to it later, but this idea that has been birthed from the original one, it's probably going to be a lot easier. So I'm kind of feeling like there's this new project or something kind of coming out of all of this, and Saturn is actually here to support that. Okay. We also finally have Jupiter coming off of this conjunction. Again, remember, this is middle of March. So the first couple of weeks of March, we still have Jupiter coming up to Chiron. But as of the middle of March, it's going to start to separate. Technically, that conjunction is on March 12th. So 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th, Jupiter is going to really start coming off. And we're going to finally feel what Jupiter in Aries is all about. We're going to have 2 months left with Jupiter in Aries. So truly thinking about your identity and thinking about who it is you want to be. And with this being in your 6th house, Scorpio, you get to really align your habits and your patterns to match that concept. I've actually started working with a hypnotherapist. It's going so well as a Scorpio moon to like help me with my brain body connection, because I've been really in the past with my medical stuff going on. It's been so hard. Like my brain is like, get up, go do this thing, do the task, fix this problem, whatever. But my body is just like, oh, I don't want to get up. So working with a hypnotherapist to help me make that transition of like, okay, brain, body, you have to work together has been so helpful. And so some of you might want to consider, I'm not saying go to hypnotherapy. I'm just saying, really focusing on that brain body connection and getting your body to actually do the things that your brain tells it to do. This is the essence of self-mastery. And this is what the 6th house is all about. So some of you can experience some huge strides in that particular area if you struggle. Not everyone does, but if you struggle, this is a great time to be focusing on that. We also have Venus coming into her sign of rulership, which can be really fantastic for you romantically. I do think Scorpio, for those of you who are single, I do think there has been a pretty substantial desire for relationships lately. But remember, Saturn is kind of coming, especially for the singles. Dating is going to be a little, I don't know. It's not going to be super easy because the standards are like really high. But the desire is still going to be there. And with Venus coming in, your desire to collaborate, your desire to work together, and the value that you place on relationships is going to be emphasized as well. Now, Venus coming into a conjunction with the North Node, this is going to be a really quiet conversation. All right. Now, this is happening like way, way, way behind the scenes. I think a lot of people probably won't even notice that because we have so many other things happening. She comes in to Taurus on the 16th. Okay. So while all this stuff is happening, here's Venus coming in, and she's going to be talking about, well, hold on, let me backtrack. The North Node can often create a lot of pileup. Okay, it doesn't have a lot of flow to it normally. And there's a lot of desire there. So a lot of energy and thoughts. Maybe you've been doing law of attraction stuff. You've been journaling. You've been lighting candles. You've been working. You've been doing all sorts of stuff. Okay. But North Node, it's like, not ready to materialize yet. Not ready, not ready, not ready. Now, the node transitions in July, moves into Aries in July. The same time that Venus is preparing for a retrograde up here in your 10th house in Leo. So there's something preemptive or foreshadowing that's likely happening here that will probably come to fruition in July. And I feel like in July, all that pile up of stuff, specifically for you, there's a lot of relationship things. That pile up is going to release and everything is going to start moving through. It's like boom, 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 really, really fast. Everything happening. And Venus retrograde here kind of allowing space for that energy to really start flowing. So this is, again, it's very quiet, but it's almost as though she is saying, okay, North Node, tell me everything that's like backed up. Tell me all the manifestations. Tell me all the desires. Tell me all of the things that are kind of in line, ready to come out. And she just collects the list. That's it. And then in July, she's going to start executing and setting everything free. Okay? So just kind of a little interesting way of looking at that particular conjunction. Really quiet, barely noticeable, but will be powerful in the next few months, in summer, beginning of Leo season. Okay? All right, Scorpio. I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you so much. You guys know how much I love and adore you. Have an amazing March, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.